Welcome to the Pechanga Gaming Commission's Gaming License Process Overview. Please pay close attention to this training as there will be a short quiz at the end. The Pechanga Gaming Commission, who we are and what we do. The Pechanga Gaming Commission is the regulatory body for the Pechanga Indian Reservation and is responsible for licensing all employees at the Pechanga Resort and Casino. The Commission is charged with conducting background investigations for gaming license applicants and with granting or denying licenses based on those findings. The length of the background investigation process will vary for each applicant. There is a common misconception of instant background checks. The Commission is also empowered to suspend or revoke any gaming license if a licensee is not in compliance with applicable laws and regulations. Denial or revocation of a gaming license disqualifies the individual from employment at Pechanga Resort and Casino. Always remember, possession of a gaming license is a privilege and not a right. Pechanga Resort and Casino and Pechanga Gaming Commission are separate entities and do not share information. All information collected by the Gaming Commission is confidential. Please keep in mind that the Commission is here to help you be well prepared for your licensing interview. The better prepared you are for the interview, the faster the process will be. Now let's spend some time talking about the Gaming Commission's authority. The Pechanga Band of Mission Indians Gaming Licensing Program is administered through the Pechanga Gaming Commission. It is an investigative licensing process under which applicants for Class 2 or Class 3 gaming licenses are evaluated against the standards set forth in and subject to the following applicable laws: the Pechanga Gaming Act of 1992, Indian Gaming Regulatory Act and National Indian Gaming Commission regulations, the Tribal State Compact requirements, and any other applicable tribal, federal, or state laws and regulations. Applicants that meet the standards for licensing will be granted a license, which must be renewed every 2 years. A gaming license is deemed a privilege that is subject to suspension and revocation at any time. It's important to note that this application and interview process is much more intrusive than you may be used to. Because of this investigative process, you'll be asked to provide personal information and explain areas of your life that may not be particularly comfortable for you. We want you to know up front what to expect so that you are fully prepared to disclose the requested information. Now let's talk about the license requirements. You must qualify for and maintain a gaming license issued by the Pechanga Gaming Commission to be employed by Pechanga Resort and Casino. Therefore, your employment with the PRNC is contingent upon successful completion of the licensing interview and background investigation processes. Applicants may be disqualified or denied a gaming license for failing to comply or follow instructions or for not meeting the licensing requirements of the Commission. Applicants must be fully prepared for their gaming license interview. Omitting or providing false information on a gaming license application or failing to disclose information will result in immediate denial of the gaming license. This slide, along with the next one, lists some of the potential disqualifying factors to consider before applying for licensure: felony conviction at any time, theft conviction at any time, misdemeanor conviction at any time involving any of the following: forgery, thievery, extortion, conspiracy to defraud, gambling activities, willful failure to make required payments or filing false reports with governmental agencies, bribing or unlawfully influencing a public officer or employee, crime involving dishonesty, embezzlement, misdemeanor violent crime, registered sex offender, current prosecution or pending charges or conviction under appeal for any of the offenses listed on the previous slide, materially false or misleading statements or material omissions on gaming license application, previous denial, suspension, or revocation of a gaming-related license, permit, and certification by a tribal, state, or federal regulatory agency, member or associate of organized crime, association with career offenders or other unsuitable persons, on probation for any criminal offense that is deemed unsuitable for employment at Pechanga Resort and Casino by the Commission, an unsuitable credit and financial record indicating inability to manage funds at the discretion of the Commission, unexplained pattern of arrests or record of offenses, any other convicted misdemeanor crime that the Commission deems as unsuitable to be granted a gaming license, including but not limited to patterns of behavior such as DUI or drug possession convictions. A credit check will be completed as part of the pre-screening process for your gaming license. Copies of credit reports will be available to applicants upon request. If you filed bankruptcy, please bring proof of filing with the court and/or letter of discharge to your gaming license interview. Be prepared to write a detailed statement about the circumstances that led up to filing for bankruptcy. Here are some common disqualifying factors related to credit: multiple collections or charge-offs, outstanding judgments or tax liens, outstanding child or family support, outstanding bank fees, insufficient funds, or payday loans, multiple bankruptcies, and habitual mismanagement of funds. Every applicant's credit history is reviewed on a case-by-case basis. Our job at the Gaming Commission is to assess risk and to protect the assets of the tribe. If you're concerned about your credit, please contact our office and we'll be happy to schedule a meeting with you prior to your gaming license interview. Here's a tip to help. By law, every person is allowed one free credit report per year per credit bureau. We strongly suggest you go online and print your own credit report prior to your gaming license interview. This way you'll be able to review your credit report prior to meeting with us. You may find that there are judgments, liens, collections, or charge-offs that you are unaware of. It may also aid you in completing the financial section of your application. Preparation for the interview. Read your instructions carefully before completing your gaming license application. Take your time in completing your licensing application. Your application must be completed prior to your gaming license interview. Not only should you carefully read the instructions prior to beginning your application, it is just as important to read instructions within the application itself. Each section will have detailed instructions as well as the gray shaded headers in each information box. Arrive for your gaming license interview fully prepared and on time. If you arrive for your interview unprepared, your employee action notice will be sent back to Human Resources Career Center and you must start the process over again with HR. There are no exceptions. Delaying the process, not being prepared, or not following instructions may result in your offer of employment being rescinded by HR. Dress professionally. You'll be scheduled for an interview with a licensing agent. Keep in mind that the purpose of this interview is to determine your eligibility for a gaming license. The Gaming Commission recommends arriving 15 minutes prior to your appointment time. Because of how tightly scheduled our appointments are, if you arrive even 5 minutes late, there's a good chance your licensing agent will not be able to meet with you on that day. We strictly adhere to our schedules and there is no grace period for those arriving even a few minutes late. Now let's spend some time talking about required identification documents. The name on all forms of identification must match and must reflect your full name. Although you've already provided HR with your identification, the Gaming Commission is a separate entity and requires that you bring both of the following documents to your gaming license interview: a valid driver's license or state-issued identification card, and your Social Security card. We cannot accept laminated cards. In addition to your driver's license and Social Security card, you'll also be required to provide one of the following documents to the Gaming Commission licensing agent during your interview if you are not born in the United States: a valid U.S. passport, a certificate of naturalization, a valid United States permanent resident card, a valid United States employment authorization card, or a certificate of birth abroad. If your names are different on your various forms of ID, our U.S. passport, naturalization certificate, permanent resident card, or employment authorization card, determine which name you're known by in the United States. Your driver's license and Social Security card should match those documents. If you served in the United States military, you are required to provide the Gaming Commission with a copy of Form DD-214 at the time of your gaming license interview. DD-214s are now available online if you do not already have a copy. The National Personnel Records Center has provided the following websites for veterans to gain access to their DD-214s online. Please pause this training if you need to write down these web addresses. Let's spend some time talking about your employment history. You must provide complete addresses and phone numbers for every employer for whom you've worked in the past 15 years. You must account for all of the time, so please list any other time that isn't work-related, for example, being a student. Include the months and years from and to for each period of employment. Do not leave gaps. Include dates of unemployment, volunteer work, self-employment, or time as a student. Begin with your current employment situation and work your way backwards 15 years. Please make sure every field is completed. We cannot accept "I don't know" or "I don't remember" as an answer. We understand that 15 years is a long time, but it is the responsibility of you, the applicant, to do the proper research and complete this section in its entirety. Missing or incomplete information can result in your application not being accepted. Use the internet. Even if a business has been closed down, you can find a lot of information online. Google is your friend. Be sure to list all residents for the past 15 years. Include any temporary housing, rented rooms, periods of time that you stayed with family or friends, etc. Include post office boxes or alternate mailing addresses. Include military deployment locations and timeframes. Include the months and years for each resident. No gaps. Begin your current place of residence and work back 15 years. Please keep in mind that as investigators, we are cross-referencing information you provided regarding where you worked, with where you lived, and where you went to school. Again, we cannot accept missing information. Please do the proper research and exhaust all of your available resources in obtaining this information. We suggest using the internet to help find addresses. Map programs such as Google Maps allow you to zoom in on a particular location, and oftentimes you can find a street address this way. You can also locate addresses using the U.S. Postal Service or whitepages.com. Make sure you select people who are dependable and know that you have listed them as a reference for a job at Pechanga Resort and Casino. The Gaming Commission uses a third-party screening firm. Please inform everyone who is listed as one of your personal references that they should be expecting a call from a SureHire, not Pechanga. A SureHire's phone number will appear on their caller ID, and the area code may appear as 916 or 650. References not returning verification calls are the most common reason for delays in processing background checks. The longer it takes for your references to call our screening company back, the longer it'll take for you to begin working. Do not list your relatives, roommates, your employees, current employer, or more than one person living in the same household. All references must reside in the United States. Please take a few minutes to read the Pechanga Gaming Commission Conflict of Interest Policy, Training Businesses. An example is if a Pechanga employee owns a school that trains table games dealers, then those students will not be eligible to apply at Pechanga. If you feel you may have a conflict, please contact our office before coming in for your licensing interview. Please pause the training so you can read this policy thoroughly, and then push play when you're ready to begin again. Certified copies of court disposition paperwork are required during your licensing interview for any criminal charges listed on the gaming license application and fingerprint results. The questions listed on the gaming license application apply to arrests, charges that occurred as a juvenile as well as an adult. Your fingerprint results will show hits for any criminal offenses that you've ever been fingerprinted for, regardless of the age or the offense, or whether it resulted in charges filed against you or a conviction. You are required to disclose all arrests and/or misdemeanors or felony charges, regardless of whether it resulted in a conviction. This includes arrests or convictions that were dismissed after deferred entries of judgment were granted or after successful completion of court-ordered programs, expungements, sealed records, etc. Regardless of whether you were told that you did not have to disclose this information, you are applying for a license, and the Commission abides by federal regulations that require full disclosure of criminal history. To clarify, if you've ever been detained or arrested by law enforcement, school officers, retail store or mall security, or anyone acting in a similar role, you need to disclose that to your licensing agent, even if it resulted in you being let go that same day and never having any charges. We still require court documents and a statement for these incidents. Also be aware of written citations or traffic-related citations that may have resulted in misdemeanor charges. Some counties and states issue misdemeanor charges for something that you might think is an infraction. For example, failure to pay a fine, failure to appear, or unlicensed driver. In order to obtain a stamped certified court document, which is basically a case print, you'll need to go to a courthouse in the county in which the arrest occurred. You'll give the court clerk your name and social security number, and they'll do the research for all records, including the time frame you've given them. If you're unsure of the exact dates of the arrest, be sure to give the clerk a wide enough time frame to allow for a proper search of their records. Oftentimes, courts will purge their records after a certain amount of time and send the information to the Department of Justice or a repository. Each court is different regarding how long they keep records, but the average is about 7 to 10 years. If the court states that they are unable to find any record under your name and social security number, you must request a search letter. The search letter will indicate that they searched their records for your information and they were unable to find anything. Please ensure that you have either the case print or the search letter stamped and certified. Failure to provide certified court documents at the time of your gaming license interview will result in delaying the process of your gaming license application and/or disqualification. Any criminal charges that are revealed during your background investigation and are not disclosed by you on your gaming license application or during your licensing interview will result in immediate denial of your gaming license. You may not be eligible to reapply for licensure with the Pechanga Gaming Commission. For questions, you can contact any member of the Pechanga Gaming Commission licensing staff at 951-693-1821. You can schedule a paperwork appointment before your gaming license interview. This will not count as your gaming license interview. Even though a more extensive background investigation is conducted on Class A applicants, financial information is required for all applicants. The information reported should include the household, which refers to the applicant and his or her spouse only. Parents, siblings, or roommates should not be included. Assets are what you own or have on hand. Liabilities are what you owe. Some tips to keep in mind are, if you live with your parents and your parents are paying all expenses, guess how much your monthly living expenses would be if your parents were not paying. If you're a co-signer on a vehicle or loan, you will need to list the amount that you would be liable for if the other signer defaulted. For vehicle market value, go to kbb.com for Kelley Blue Book values on your vehicles. For resident market value, visit Zillow.com. If you're not married and have roommates, a fiance, boyfriend, or girlfriend, put down your portion of the rent only. If you have multiple accounts, cars, loans, etc., please just add up the total of all items in that one category and provide one number in each field. Be prepared to write detailed statements for any criminal or credit issues, as well as any other areas of concern such as terminations, military misconduct, lawsuits, etc. It's to your benefit to write as detailed statement as possible. This is your way of having your situation evaluated in the most thorough manner, rather than being evaluated based solely on your credit report, court records, fingerprint hits, etc. A statement helps provide the Gaming Commission with full understanding of the situation in question. You're encouraged to do research and prepare for your statements ahead of time. Feel free to write or type a rough draft at home before your interview. You'll be asked to write your statements on our forms during the interview. Once again, if you have any questions about the licensing process, please call the Gaming Commission Licensing Department. The number again is 951-693-1821. Pechanga Gaming office hours are Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., and they are closed on all major holidays. This concludes the Pechanga Gaming Commission's Gaming License Process Overview training. Please feel free to use this training as a resource as you're filling out your application. Thank you and have a good day.